Hello, and welcome to episode 28 of the Whiskey Podcast. I'm Judata.
And I am Nate Fu.
And it is still ridiculously hot out here.
And again, we will hopefully not have any abrupt ends to the podcast like we did last week when everything just overheated. And, shit the bed, had to recover the file, which took 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
But we
in the
managed to
heat,
get it
uphill
out.
both ways.
Yep. Get off my lawn.
With their hippity-hoppity and all that fun stuff.
All right. What are we drinking today?
Well, we
and
are
why are we drinking
finishing the Shield Egg, which is, some of you may remember, that is Mama Bear's Father's Day gift to me. And we have officially reached all of the checklist items. My little Ewok slept over with Nate Fu and the family last weekend. So it's her first night away the entire time. And she is officially 18 months this past week. So cheers to that.
Cheers.
And she is beyond terrifying.
It was, having all three of them over wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. She was really, really, once she got over the fact that it was, it's bedtime and I'm not at home, this is new, it was great after that.
Right.
I was expecting a lot more trauma just because I watched what mine did the first time they ever slept outside the house, and it was like, nope, let me out of this house. I want to go home. I want mommy. I want daddy. I want everything. Oh, ice cream?
Yep. No, the nice thing about my Ewok is that she only grew up during COVID. So the only people she's known has been our family. So might as well be one big, happy, codependent family.
Yeah, I was talking with a wife this week about that, and just how our kids are just going to have no concept of cousins, and they're going to have friends at school that are going to be like, what do you mean you're not sisters?
Right. I don't know. My daughter looks enough different from yours too that I think that's important to acknowledge. Though could get away with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
could be the milkman.
There's enough similarity in between between your wife and mine that
since they're sisters,
right?
Yeah.
That it won't be, you're not related, or no one's going to be surprised that they're related.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say.
Well, yeah, as Tim is saying in chat, milestones are definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
And, good or bad, all three of our girls have been meeting and exceeding those milestones consistently. Which means that I am terrified of what they are capable of. In a good way, I guess. Terrified in a good way of their potential.
Mm-hmm.
But, we went in this morning to Mama Bear's classroom since she has to set up from scratch. And, my daughter's there overseeing as I'm doing the power tools to assemble furniture and having to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Bear's giving directions on how she wants to decorate the classroom, and she follows behind, mimicking the arm gestures and talking and saying everything in, parallel. And, just happily involved with everything that was going on. And then helped us pick out more borders and things like that at the store. So can't really complain about how involved she is, that's for sure.
Right.
But one step closer to gaining back our offices and our man caves.
Yep, and then we start the sound treatment and get all that up and running. All right, I am going to pop this out real quick.
Uh-oh. Shield your eyes, chat. He's popping it out.
Nope, I'm getting a little laggy here.
Oh, It says feed totally locked up.
Yep.
So, can you
Give it a
hear
sec.
us? Or is it just the video? Glitch tactic.
Yep, I just opened up another Twitch tab, or not Twitch tab, a Chrome tab.
So, Tim, if you can hear us,
Okay.
you can hear Chew Daddy better than Nate if he is talking. Nate is talking. Perhaps we shouldn't be using your little computer from now on.
Right.
Or, you know what, maybe we'll set up before the next stream our in-office den and just have everything hardwired to desktops. Nope, Nate's mic died. Nate, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Papa, can you hear me? Of course, he might be on delay, too.
He probably is on delay.
On delay, on delay.
Arriba.
Okay.
See, Chew Dad coming in good. I'm guessing you're just the reason I'm all messed up with sound normally.
Where are we on stream starting on the...
Oh, he heard on delay from Nate. Whatever. Delay on delay.
Okay. What scene are we on?
What scene are we on? We should be on the podcast scene.
We are not.
We are, in fact. That's a delay on your end because I'm watching on my on my phone also.
Hey! Maybe this one should have been the technical difficulties episode.
Yep. Oh, shit's fine now. Cool.
Cool.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
And we're going to work on that.
Yeah, we definitely do have some issues with the stream from time to time, and
well,
being
the
on
heat
Wi-Fi,
and Wi-Fi
the heat,
right now is certainly making it worse. Maybe it's just the stream. I think it's definitely the stream and then some.
Cool.
Um,
More edit points. Thank you, Tim.
Yes. So when all this pops up, it's a good indication of when to edit.
Right.
But
Hey, you're just giving me more material for the outtakes.
right. This is why we can't have nice things. So how's life been going with you?
It's been good. Work's
Whose
returning.
internet speed dick is larger, Nate's or Chudada's?
Chudada's by far.
Mine, by far.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I've got a gig down, 65 up.
Something like that. And I'm at a measly 250 to 300 down and 25 up.
Mm-hmm. I've got huge
Broadband.
broadband.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your band is very broad,
Mm-hmm. As is my waist.
as is your waist.
Yeah.
Funny.
So how's life been with you? You just had a shit couple weeks.
Yeah, and thankfully that's over. The project passed with flying colors, and they decided to take that opportunity to try to delay us even more. It turns out there was a lot of red tape involved about avoiding penalties,
Mm-hmm.
and they just thought we were going to miss it miserably. But the 2 weeks that I put in, the 12 hours, 14-hour days, and it was a very nice paycheck, by the way. We managed to knock it out in time and hit every single mark like we were supposed to.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was great. The president of the site came down to our department with the entire HR team to, smile, shake hands, pat backs, say thank you. As I'm wearing my Dizzy DLO, I hate it here shirt.
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing of that is absolutely perfect.
It was great.
And they all had to shake your hand while you're wearing a shirt that says, I hate it here.
We were in mid-conversation, and the head HR lady looks at me and she goes, wait a minute. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's humor. It's humor. She goes, so you don't hate it here? I said, no, I mean, the last 2 weeks were a little rough and made me reconsider things, but we all had a good chuckle over it. I'm waiting to see if I get called into HR on Monday, though.
Yeah, I mean, you should point out the fact that you've been there for 17 years.
Right.
17 years.
And it wasn't profane. There, it wasn't
Yeah.
like I fucking hate it here,
Yeah.
or-
Although if it had Dizzy's tag on it, it may have been a little more excusable. Like, oh, no, it's a quote from this guy.
Right.
Yeah, it's his catchphrase.
Well, actually, I did explain that. I said this
Uh-huh.
is streamer gear. I'm wearing it,
Uh-huh.
humorously. And they went, oh, okay. Wink, nod, smile.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Back to normal. We actually had pretty easy days. I'm still working on some side stuff for the engineering department. It seems like I'm getting shifted over into that role more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm less on the day-to-day grind, minutia stuff that is tedious and mind-numbing.
And so that should come with a pay bump, right? No.
Well, it did way back. I want to say earlier, at the beginning of this year, the union renegotiated our department and our contract with the company to fold engineering into test.
Mm-hmm.
Because we used to be separate departments, and engineering basically had 2 techs.
Right.
And that's fine for the most part, but when things spool up, resources run out real fast, and it's not effective for them to have 4 guys on staff when 2 are only needed most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So our union lead negotiated that the entire test department and engineering department get folded together, and then all of those resources are available.
Nice.
So with that came everybody in the department got a labor grade bump, which is effectively a raise.
Nice.
And yeah, as long as I don't do the night shifts come with a stipend or I want to say it's $1.50 bump
On an hour.
Yeah, which that's reasonable.
Right.
I won't turn it down. And then as the final thank you from the company, the wife and I will be going to a Dodger game, the company seats, next Saturday.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Who's watching the kids?
I believe Grammy is.
Which means we are. Cool. Good to know. Enjoy that Dodger game there.
It's a night game, so it'll be basically bedtime.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you won't. Yeah, if it was a daytime game, that would be a whole different animal.
Uh-huh.
So we might actually have Grammy come over, and just put him to bed.
Which might be a good idea. You know, just in general, the amount of times that your daughters have been over this week, and I've had to turn off camera because a naked oldest daughter of yours comes running in while I'm on a work meeting.
Right.
That's also the reason I haven't streamed lately, because every time I go to stream, your kids are here about 2 hours later than they typically are supposed to be for bed.
Right.
And I really don't want to be recording child pornography.
Yeah,
that is not what I want my stream to be about.
We've been avoiding getting banned on Twitch
by not streaming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess I am set up to dual stream to my channel and this channel, but I still need to look into Twitch's terms of service and make sure that's not a no-no.
Well, what we talked about, and for those aware, so Debuff Dad is going to be its own entity that we both are, complimenting and submitting to, and that's going to be not about gaming. Mm-hmm. That's about us being parents, being dads, trying to help out other people, content just across the board there of adulting. We're each going to continue our individual gaming streams and do those, and kind of, that's a hobby that I'm continuing. Nate's doing it actually a little bit more full-time and actually reached over 100 followers recently.
Yeah, that was our last stream that we did together. When you did Gloomhaven, I was doing the tutorial on that, and ended up picking up the last few follows that I needed to break that triple digit mark.
Yep.
And then I had another community member raid me the stream I had before that, and that really bumped my my concurrence up and my follower count up. So if all goes well, and I have a couple more good streams. There's the scammer kicking in again. I may actually eventually get my affiliate chip and my sub button, and that'll be fun.
Right.
So one step closer to being able to quit my job and be a full-time streamer man.
Uh-huh. Well, hot tub streams will be next, so.
Hey, it's right here. It's right behind us.
Yeah, we do have the hot tub. And if I manage to break another chair today, I'm just going to go jump into the pool, so. Count your blessings, everyone.
So, speaking of that, Tim in chat says, get wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been having all sorts of fun foibles with that. Last week we destroyed a chair, plastic chair like this. I actually looked
when
at
you
a
say
couple
we, no, it was me. It was me entirely.
Right.
My fat ass sat down and the chair did not appreciate it.
Right.
Mind you, these chairs are older than all of our daughters combined, so I don't, take it too personally, but still.
Yeah, it was quite a humorous moment. And I still am looking into getting those chairs.
Well, so I think we definitely want to continue with some stuff outside, but, with redoing the office, I'm really into kind of creating our little lounge in there.
Yes, definitely.
Our drinker's lounge, and, stream, not even just stream, but like our just chill man cave place.
Right. A space where, boys can be boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can scratch ourselves and fart a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Although the girls have been outdoing us in that department lately. I'm just saying. Bodily functions.
And then speaking of getting wrecked, my wife has found, for whatever reason, the need to... and this is a visual bit. To purchase me one of these.
Yes, and for those that can't see it, this is a skateboard. A longboard, I believe.
No, just a regular skateboard.
It's a regular skateboard?
Yeah. She wanted to get me a longboard, but I guess they weren't available at the time.
So, yes, Lady Fu has bought Nate Fu a skateboard in his mid-40s.
Yes.
And, who are the beneficiaries on your life insurance policy?
That would be you guys, actually.
Oh, us?
Yeah.
So it bypasses Lady Fu.
Well, it's both of them. I think it gets split between them.
Gotcha. I'm not sure he has the skill of balance. He just has the skill of having better bodily functions than everyone else in the family combined.
Yes. I was actually surprised how quick the skills necessary to stay upright on a skateboard came back to me. I haven't been on a board since I was early 20s, but I used to skate every day. That was my mode of transportation. So I'm not unfamiliar with the concept. It had just been a long freaking time, and once I got the trucks adjusted on it, it was like being a kid again.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Meanwhile, then I have the. So, for those of you that don't know, I used to be a referee for roller derby.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're out there skating skateboarding without any kind of padding, whatever. I'm there with the butt pad, all the elbow and wrist braces, the helmet, the ankle braces, the knee braces, and still managed to,
pants full of Charmin,
pull my LCL.
Yeah, we're definitely. Yeah. Do we look like the extreme sport type?
Yeah, I don't know. You're out there living your best life, and I just found out. So I ended up talking with a doctor earlier this week,
mm-hmm.
and they are starting to treat me for fibromyalgia, which is an interesting concept.
Right.
So what is fibromyalgia? Well, that first comes down to what is pain.
Right.
So for those that don't know, pain isn't real. Pain. What did you just do?
Skateboard just fell over.
Okay. Pain is in fact something that's entirely in your head. It's the way your body tells you
mm-hmm.
that your muscles, your joints, or whatever are reaching an extreme point.
Right. It's an electrical signal sent to your
There are
brain.
no such thing as pain receptors.
Right.
It's all it's all different ways that your body reacts to it. And you can go to some extremes.
Right.
At one extreme, there's where your body is so completely in pain that any movement or constant, involved is going to trigger a pain response.
Mm-hmm.
And that, fibromyalgia is one of those situations where your body has experienced trauma.
Right.
So the body tries to overprotect itself by it. The opposite of that is there are some people that actually don't feel pain whatsoever
mm-hmm.
and get to a point where, I was talking with someone yesterday where they literally had to have a body part amputated because they didn't feel the pain that they had overextended and done such severe damage to their joint and muscles that, it was, potentially harmful to their life. Not just their well-being, but their life. So with fibromyalgia, basically it is a, imbalance of how your body, the hormones and, particularly serotonin and dopamine are balanced and react to your body. So it's actually anti-anxiety, antidepressant meds that are typically associated with treating this. So I am on what's called an SSRI, and this is about day 4, day 5, and damn, I feel better than I have in 15 years. Like, legitimately, I wake up and I am not in pain.
Right.
I've got energy that I can interact with things.
And we had thought that a lot of the issues you were having was the reason you've got the
mask. Well, I still have sleep apnea.
Right. But yeah, we associated a lot of the issues you were having with the sleep apnea.
Well, sleep apnea, being overweight, and those sort of things. And from a long-term injury that I had back in high school. But many of these situations are still kind of a result of that, aspect there. Now, do I have fibromyalgia? I don't know yet, but we're treating for it, and there are definite results from it.
Right.
So, this is something that goes with the mental health portion of this, is it's okay to not be okay and to ask for help and figure out what's going on. Typically, with fibromyalgia, it's actually something that women experience more, mainly because of pregnancy. You're going to get into a situation where your body goes through severe stress and then tries to protect itself from that in the future. And one of the biggest problems is that, from a guy's standpoint, we're taught, just tough it up, man up and, get it done.
Right.
And from a woman's standpoint, you're just complaining because you're a woman. And so a lot of these situations don't get treated.
Right.
But having that quality of life allows you to have the rest of everything else that goes into being a human being, much less an adult, a father, a husband, etc. So
have you been finding the medication is one, obviously helping with the fibro, with the pain receptors and everything, so you're feeling better that way?
Yeah, so I'm actually on a significantly low dose of what's called an SSRI, and this is day 4 of it. And the first 3 days, I especially noticed swings as it started to, adjust to things. And, at one point I turned to a mama bear, and I'm like, I can't deal with the family or work or anyone right now. I am totally freaking out. But, you know what? I'm sleeping. I'm not sleeping a full night's sleep yet, but I'm still getting a couple hours, and that has far more benefit than it used to have.
Right.
And, I'm feeling better. Now, after 2 weeks, I may look at, potentially doubling the dose, doing one in the evening and one in the morning. But right now, it's such a swing from what I was before that I don't even know what, my new ground level is, so to speak.
Have you noticed any, knock-on effect of now being on a mood stabilizer, for lack of a better term, anti-anxiety bed? Now, granted, you weren't trying to treat anxiety.
Well, everyone has a degree of anxiety. It's whether that anxiety ends up impacting their ability to function, which is not a bad mark on anyone. It's a reality of, your levels in your body producing different things. Again, it's how your body is responding to different things. Yes, as I said, I have more energy. I have a little bit more swings, but also because I kind of grew up with some of this there, I learned to kind of pull that emotional swing out of it and focus on individual tasks.
Right.
Which is part of the reason I'm a project manager in the real world. But there's definitely been some impacts where I take the meds and 3 hours later I am fully energized and ready to go.
Nice.
And focused and excited to be, involved in something. And then there's other days where I'm like, I can't get out of bed. I can't deal with that.
Interesting.
And these are just the body kind of going through the highs and lows and trying to figure out what does this mean.
Right. It needs to now adjust to how much serotonin to produce and melatonin to produce.
And this is something that very likely was going on for at least the last decade, if not longer. So this is an entire process that is, besides what my body is doing mentally and emotionally, figuring out what that means is huge.
That's good. Like I'm happy that it's again having more benefit than, obviously fibro is brutal.
Yeah, but it's actually common.
Right.
I think they say 20 to 30% of people actually have fibromyalgia in some way. It's just how they treat it and how they deal with it.
Right. And again, it's recognizing that you have an ailment, right? As opposed to, well, this is just how my body is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's looking at how we treat these issues. We look at 20 years ago, and if I were an adult back then, I would, suck it up and have to deal with it. I would chain smoke. I would drink heavily. I would do everything that I could to treat it naturally because that's what was expected.
Right, exactly. Numb the pain through nefarious means.
And literally that's what was available to you. It's not till recently, and hell, right now going on in the Olympics with Simone Biles. Yeah. Like taking to something, my health is important. I'm going to take care of myself before I take care of some arbitrary medal.
Right. And she caught so much freaking grief for that.
She caught a lot more support than grief.
Well, once she kind of delved into it, like she just was like, I'm done. I'm taking a mental break, and this is just too much for me right now. And everyone was like, well, how dare you quit on your team, blah, 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 blah. And then once she sat down and explained to people, she was getting, what was it?
Twisties.
The twisties, right? And in the gymnast world, that is it's a very well-known thing that if you get the twisties, it's basically you get disoriented.
Yeah. You're unable to control and understand where you are in the process of a flip or a twist.
Right.
And therefore land and react to it appropriately so as not to injure yourself.
Yeah, you lose your spatial awareness. So imagine that happening. You're in the middle of a double twist, and this is the vault that she did. And she eliminated a twist.
Yeah.
Because
she did a 1.5 instead of a 2.5.
Right.
And
midair, you don't realize where you are. You don't come down right. You don't come down on your legs square like you're supposed to. You could come down on one leg, snap something, come down on your back, your neck, your head.
And Simone Biles is someone that has competed with broken toes and, other severe injuries. Her history is having gone through getting molested by the team doctor while also competing and these sort of things. And so to say that she's not strong enough is bullshit.
Absolutely absurd.
But what she's doing for an entire generation of people, much less, for women, for African Americans, for young people, whatever.
For athletes, for...
my health is more important
than
some random award, even though it's the Olympics.
Right.
And the Olympics are cool and all, but I really don't want someone dying to get a gold medal. And guess what? One of her team members and one of the people that she's helped train won the gold anyway.
Right.
So it's like... props to that. Like suddenly the experience of, no, you're human and you need to take care of yourself.
Right.
I have friends and colleagues who have outright died as a result of overworking and letting, that overwork and that push for something, destroy them physically and mentally and their marriages and their health and all those things. Is like, why the fuck are you doing that?
Right.
Seriously.
Well, and again, this was a conversation that my wife and I have had, when we found out we were having daughters, what type of activities we want them involved in. A lot of people put their kids through like soccer or martial arts or gymnastics or some sort of structured competitive play, right? To do that. And one of the things we talked about was, hey, would you mind if our daughters did gymnastics? And I said no. Like that was my foot is down. I'm not doing that because of just how damaging training.
Yeah, and that
for gymnastics.
expectation that comes with it.
Right.
That's the
And
worst part, I
again,
think.
people look at the Olympics, they look at Simone Biles and they go, okay, well, she is the one person out of thousands, right, that went to that level. There are so many broken bodies in the wake of getting, that one person getting to that point. There are so many people behind her that didn't, that flamed out, that injured out, that, right?
No, 100%.
They're irreparably damaged from doing gymnastics, and I was not on board with that. Soccer was another one that was brought up, and I like the game of soccer. A good friend of mine had his daughter in soccer for the longest time, and she ended up absolutely blowing out her knee. And it's like she can't work, and she's getting overweight because she can't actually exercise.
Well, that's what happened to me. Like I ended up having a severe back injury, not sports. It was me being a fucking idiot and lifting a box, but with my back that ended up, carrying a ton of weights. But because of that back injury, I couldn't work out. Like I would have trainers and things like that I would work with because I was lucky enough to have the means to do that, and I physically couldn't get past it because of that weight involved. But no, like my grandfather was huge into baseball, and he got an invite to join the Yankees back in the day, and he ended up blowing out his knee, sliding into second, I think it was,
right,
and could never play again.
Yep.
And that is something that impacted his health for his entire life.
Yep.
And so I'm all for sports, and you're going to play, you're going to push yourself, and that's great. But at what point is your well-being more important than someone on the sidelines' interests?
Right.
And that's a personal choice that every individual needs to make, and it shouldn't be a choice made for them.
Yeah, and again, when you do it as a hobby, like I used to bowl as a hobby,
right?
And absolutely wrecked my shoulder a couple of times. And again, it's not a big deal because I didn't make my $25 a week league, right? When you start getting to that level, when you get to the level of the Olympics, you get to the level of the NFL and MLB. You cease to be an individual and an athlete and a hobbyist, and you become a product.
Right.
Right.
Well, and that's what all of this becomes is, how can we utilize something to sell something? And most of the people are being utilized to sell something.
Being used. Let's not gloss over it.
And, that's one of the things I do have to give credit to is Simone Biles, in her situation, has sponsors and partnerships that have every one of them stood up and supported her.
Right.
That
made me happy one day.
And I don't know if that was her choice in finding, partners and whomever to support her that met her own personal needs, or if that is these companies being aware of what's going on.
I think it's a good mix of both.
Yeah. And that is huge, and that gives me hope for the type of future that we may have.
Right, and
our girls.
You're seeing it in the NFL this year because they're instituting these wild and crazy, COVID rules. And again, I get it. It's about trying to keep the sport running and trying to keep the individual safe.
Just talking NFL, I think I want to say it's Tampa Bay, but they had a huge push where. Several senior members of the team and then supporters realized, there's a lot of brain damage and mental issues
studies,
that result from the NFL and from professional players just using their bodies and getting totally destroyed. And so
then being just absolutely cast aside. Right.
It's like, okay, you're done.
Yeah, you're done.
Thrown out to the the wolves. And there's been a lot of research and effort, and honestly, it's activism. Well, not activism, activism.
Yeah.
We'll get into that one in a moment. That has been pushed forward to talk about the mental health and well-being.
Ironically enough, the CTE studies that are going on in the NFL, were pushed and kind of spearheaded by another sport that nobody wants to give credit to, and that's professional wrestling.
Yep.
You know,
But was it WWE wrestling? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because again, it doesn't seem like much. It's performative. It's not, technically a sport. It is.
Yeah, but it's as intense
Right.
coordination as ballet.
Mhm.
It's a art as well as a science, and if you don't have the mental capabilities to continuously deal with it,
Mhm.
you can't keep up with it.
Yeah, and you had Chris Benoit that suffered so much brain and head injury over the course of his career, flipping off of top ropes, getting bouncing off the mat, whatnot. That and then of course coupled with rampant steroid use in the WWE.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely lost his mind, and what did he injured his family and hung himself, or right? Like, that's absurd, and that's what kicked off the study. Like, what caused this very public, very tragic thing? And they were like, oh, yeah, he's they scans of the autopsy on his brain was like, oh yeah, he had CTE, and they're like, well, if it could happen for wrestlers, what about the NFL? Right.
Well, and the NFL had a significant amount of players that in their early 30s were starting to get dementia and severe brain trauma that wasn't presenting itself until after their careers had ended or something like that, and realized in many cases that sometimes it had presented earlier, but it was being treated as something else in the short term. And so how do we take better care of our players to continue?
Yeah.
You're seeing some of that happening with UFC now.
Oh, God, yeah.
And boxing. And I you start seeing that, yeah, these are gladiatorial sports. People want to see the blood. They want to see these things in it because that's, the carnal instincts of human beings.
Right.
But it's entertainment. We don't need to be, taking people to some low level where their entire existence is for our entertainment.
Right.
And that goes for streamers, that goes for wrestlers, that goes for NFL players, that goes for any human being you interact with.
Yep.
So that's my spiel on that. But let's jump to another soapbox. The state of California.
From activism to Activision, right?
Yeah. So the state of California, particularly the Department for Fair Employment, something along those lines?
Yeah, Department of Housing and Fair Employment, DHFE.
Has filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard for basically awful misdeeds.
Yeah, allegations of misconduct at the management
sexual harassment, like allegations that go back literally decades.
Right.
And this is a good point to stop because we are getting ice added to. Yep. So this is a momentary stop as we get our drinks and ice refilled because again, it is legitimately 100 degrees out here.
Yes. There she goes. Oh, I see one of the little ones running around.
No, we're getting there, Tim. We're definitely getting there.
Yep.
Thank you, Lovey.
And the benefits of being here live.
Get to see us all pat those bellies.
Uno más?
Yeah, sure, why not? It's cold. It's hot. Something.
Ice is cold, water is wet. No, water is not wet. Water gets other things wet.
Well, yeah, it does.
Don't at me.
A win?
Yep. That is a win.
Alright. Oh, where were we?
Activism and Activision.
So, long story short, there has been a significant history in Activision Blizzard, and I'm going to actually push this out there to, Ubisoft has had reports against it, but I'm going to push this out to the entire
Games,
video game industry and the entertainment industry overall has had a horrid history of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, misogyny, boys club. I mean, the jokes about the casting couch in entertainment go back 70, 80 years. It's not, unfounded. Mad Men is based on truth in some degree. But so these events have happened recent enough that the state departments here in California have decided to take action against it. And that action has taken a step further to walkouts, both at Activision Blizzard and at Ubisoft, to pickets, to a lot of things where, knowing enough people at Blizzard, I know that development and support on multiple games shut down because these people are like, oh my God, like this was going on, but we didn't realize to what extent this was going on.
Right.
And it's a kind of a Me Too movement effort that has taken on a lot more prominence because, especially in the industry and communities we're in, it hits a lot closer to home.
Right. And Tim and I had discussed on the other podcast I'm on, The Fork in Your Ear, we kind of touched on the topic there, and it was still kind of in its infancy. The what was actually happening with it, and boycotting the industry, boycotting every product that they sold, and what the repercussions of that were. Because obviously, you want to hit these companies in their wallet because that's when they wake up and react. But the knock-on effect of that is you unemploy people in the process that weren't doing that, right?
But there's a flip side to this also, and I kind of want to put this out. This is a conversation that Mama Bear and I had last night before, something like that, in that, yes, all these issues are horrific, and I don't want to downplay it, but these issues have existed in our society for centuries.
Right.
And we are now at a point where we're finally deciding to address it in real time. And it's twofold. The video game industry and the tech industry is literally doing what Wall Street and entertainment and the boys club was doing for decades. They just finally got to a spot where, they're suddenly, we're the cool guys that have money and can throw that around. I want to live that life that we were shown on Hollywood. I want to do these sort of things. And the only thing they had was this toxic masculinity as an example. This doesn't go to excuse any of it. This doesn't go to, defend them in any way, because what they did was horrid, and there's nothing, that can deny that. The question is how do we look at the cause of this and build a better world for our kids moving forward?
And one of the, I guess, in the entertainment industry, there are avenues in which you can combat this. They have SAG and AFTRA, right, that not only allow the talent to negotiate and have some sort of process, right? Video games did not and still do not have that luxury. So,
it's any tech. I don't want to just call it video games because video games is the area there. But I have been to BlizzCon since its inception. I have seen the boys club that was there,
and the booth babes, right? Yeah. It's a thing.
Anyone who's been to an expo in the 80s, 90s, or early 2000 knows about booth babes,
right? And I mean, the auto shows that I go to have booth babes, right?
None of this is new. Hell, TV was doing it up until recently, and they're still doing it on many channels. There is still a significant population of the United States, much less the world, that is all for objectifying other human beings.
Right. And profiting off of it.
100%. Twitter keeps sending me, alerts for new people to follow that is just, women showing off how hot they are.
Right. And then you got someone like Amaranth, who I guess news came out that she is netting somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.1 million a month from her OnlyFans. And, kudos to her for whatever, like she can sell her body in that means. Yeah. But they're upset because she's promoting the existence of this channel on her Twitch, and they feel that this is a violation of Twitch's code of conduct, that she's promoting another service.
But meanwhile, this is what people want. And so you can be indignant as much as you want, but props to people to take advantage of it and take control of it.
Yeah, and my only issue with, in this case, Amaranth and the other one, Zelinity, is, they very much toe and sometimes cross that line to then push people like, oh, look, wardrobe malfunction. But, if you really want to see that more, then you can go to my OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's called marketing.
Right.
And that's marketing tactics that have worked forever. I have nothing against people that want to own themselves.
Sure.
And take advantage
but play within
it.
the rules of your service or suffer the consequences.
That service is allowed far worse.
Right.
And I don't necessarily do
But,
it.
they banned a friend of ours for having the name, for the word butt in his name.
Yeah, and that's different department, different division, and it's its own bullshit. But, yeah. But no, just going back to where this is, so in the early 90s, these things were going on at these video games, at these conferences. I have seen these things firsthand, and literally I have worked with people that have enough blackmail on important, wealthy individuals that they will never be held accountable for their misconduct.
Right.
But also understand that their misconduct at the time wasn't misconduct.
Sure.
It was status quo. And so, now if we're spending the time addressing, these are the new norms that we want to live by, and this is what we want to do from there, then we need to take a serious look at what we want out of people. Because legitimately, it's people in their 30s and 40s right now that are being taken advantage of the most, because they're in a situation of, well, we grew up in a society where we were just, cogs in a machine, and we had to work through it, and you put in that time, and you had to suck it up and do those sort of things. And then other people that are so used to instant gratification that they don't necessarily have the empathy developed to figure out what else is involved with it.
Yeah, and Tim in chat asked the question, is it right or ethical for guys or gals to follow lewd content on Twitter, or is it situational?
Honestly, you do you, boo.
Right?
It's not my monkey, not my circus. That's not something that I have time or energy to follow.
Yeah, I mean,
if
back in my day, back in the 80s and 90s, it was Playboy magazine. Was it wrong for me to go buy a Playboy magazine? The way I look at it, if I want to go buy Playboy, allow me to buy Playboy. If someone wants to then model for Playboy and sell themselves as a product for other people to consume, let them do it. I don't have an issue with that.
Though I will fight that they should make sure that they're in a deal in such a way that they profit from it, not be taken advantage of it.
See, that's a different issue. Yeah,
right.
There's been the whole issue with sex workers, right?
Oldest profession in the history of the human race.
Yeah, and Tim should be very aware that the city of Seattle has a literal underground that was built
for that
on sex work.
Yeah, and with that said, if someone's being taken advantage of, that is unacceptable. If someone chooses to do it and they're able to, profit from it, all power to them.
Yeah, I mean,
and
my mother was a stripper. I don't have a problem with it, but, and again, I grew up in a very body positive household because of my mother's profession, and she would have
a drinking problem.
You do.
I just spilled my drink on me.
Her coworkers would come over to the house, and again, very body positive, very free. I've seen more tits in my lifetime than I care to count, and it wasn't, but because of my exposure to that, I have a very different, boobs walk by, I don't right? I don't immediately go, cartoon wolf, jaw hit the floor, eyeballs pop out, sweaty, drooling all over it. And again, it was just it was normalized to me that, boobs are boobs, bodies are bodies. When the wife and I were doing Ren Fair on a regular basis, she worked for a clothier, And the booth was mostly, pardon the pun, manned by women.
Yeah.
And the back room of that booth was basically off limits because boys are toxic and boys are boys.
Mhm.
And they're lewd and leering and made the workers there uncomfortable. So they had that safe space behind the curtain that they could go and change into the next outfit or do whatever, or just unwind,
Yeah.
and loosen their bodices. And because my wife was part of that booth, we'd set up shop and I'd go back there to drop off my gear and change into my garb so I could go out and play in the round. But like the first time I walked back there, it was like, oh my God.
Mhm.
And, they were expecting a reaction from me of, staring and leering and doing whatever. And it was just like, oh, okay, it's boobs. Yeah. Pardon me. I'm going to change into my stuff, if you don't mind seeing my butt, or I'll go turn around the corner. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, you don't have an issue with this? I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah. No, dude, I was in theater.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to theater school. I have seen so much that it doesn't faze me.
And it's part of
There's not very much that you can say or do that's going to, bother me in that regard. So now, Tim says, regarding the Seattle tour, he never took the underground tour and didn't know what it was for. He just knows the Japanese folks hiding during Pearl Harbor. Also, I did not know, Nate, your mom was a stripper. That's in all caps.
Mhm.
But what he says is, well, what I'm getting at is, within my own personal ecosystem, wife doesn't care what I look at or follow, as she likes to look too. But I find myself thinking, maybe I shouldn't follow XY sexy cosplayer because my own public persona, Twitter, has those follows and occasional retweets, eventually maybe being used against me. And my response is, you're a human being. The image that you want to show on social media, however tailored and curated you want it to be, or however open and authentic you want to be, are decisions that you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
If you find yourself in a situation where those things could be used against you and you're concerned about that, then the decision is not to get involved in it because that's what is important to you.
Well, and then you got to question what are people saying, and is it something that you're, oh, hey, I like to look at scantily clad women, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no problem with that. There's a difference between, okay, viewing a product that is put out there, that someone has chosen to put out there, and driving up to that person's house with binoculars and staring into their bedroom window, right?
Well, let's look back at history, shall we?
It's a consent decree to a certain extent. If someone is allowing you to do that by putting that performative art on whatever media channel it is you're consuming, go ahead, consume it, and don't, like, why should you feel shame for finding women attractive?
Yeah. And for all the people that are like, oh my God, this is so awful, it's against my religion. The amount of naked statues and paintings that exist in the Vatican right now. So I call bullshit on all of that. It's, as I said, you do you, boo. If this is something that gets entertainment and you enjoy it, great. I know strippers that are doing better financially than I could ever do in 100 years. And that is something that they've chosen to do. They know they've got something. They're going to work it. They're going to take advantage of it. I know people that are, not going to do anything until they're married and they're very prude, and that's the lifestyle for them. So be it. That's their choice.
Yep.
If they try to take their choices and impose those on other people, that's where the problem exists.
Right.
But everything else,
again,
it's not hurting anyone.
We get onto consent. Right?
It's respect for other human beings and people being able to have that body autonomy for what's going on. But the first part is respect for other human beings.
Respect boundaries, respect, yeah. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you dropping in.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, and I've got two people in chat that we've had these discussions before in just in whatever, just side conversation. So again, I'm an I'm an open book when it comes to stuff. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't. Lead with my mom was a stripper, Tim. That's I guess that's not a typical icebreaker in conversation,
right?
But as much as
it goes back into
the other. Hold on,
things.
here, newsflash. I was also an altar boy, so go ahead and process that one in your head.
Like taking this the other step, like for people that wonder, like, oh my God, how do you think this way? We have a conversation at work that we're joking about, creating another company polo shirt, and the women are like, we don't want to wear polo shirts. Like, one in particular is like, if you make it a crop top, I'll wear it. And I'm like, you know what? If you make a company crop top and that's what you people want, I will totally be there.
Right.
Because, you know what? I wouldn't recommend taking a look at me in a crop top, but it's true. Why are we setting these examples and priorities based on someone else's dress code? Why are we doing these sort of things out there? We're very big on culture in my company, and but what is our culture? Our culture is a mutual sense of respect for every individual that's there and what they've gone through and how they've gotten to this point. Like my favorite joke, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is when we had an IR with my boss and Nate next to each other, and two of them went into ADHD mode and got more accomplished in an hour than I could have a full team accomplish in, half a day. And I was laughing my ass off.
You couldn't get a conversation with either one of us. I
was laughing my ass off during this process because, like, same look, same level of focus, same level of detail. And, I'm on the outside, like, I'm going to twiddle my thumbs until you guys get through what you're doing because I can't actually contribute to this.
Right.
But, it's the understanding of the values and not just emotional intelligence, conversation, but the understanding of other human beings and what makes them successful, what makes them prosper at what they do, and empowering them to be unique and powerful individuals.
Right.
Like that's what I want from our daughters. That's what I want, and maybe when Mama Bear and I go for number 2, that might be a son. So maybe that's what I want for my son as well. Or, daughter number 4, because we'd be screwed anyways with so few men to women ratio. But, tangenting there. What I want from any human being that comes into this contact is to have the ability to stand on their own. And, that is far more than just a good education and good connections. It's how do you, as a human being, do what you got to do? I actually had a conversation with Joe from Gmh the week leading up to their recent charity stream, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's like so much of mental health as an adult has to deal with things that no one wants to talk about. Right. It's finances. It's understanding the pieces that go together to give yourself some security. It's understanding what value your own priorities mean compared to having a day job. It's the art and creativity that so many people rely on. It's that community and exclusion that are so ignored that when you look at mental health in a vacuum, when you look at finances in a vacuum, then when you look at parenting in a vacuum, are so often ignored. Right. But this is the foundation of everything we're trying to do with Whiskey and Debuff Dad and everything there, is because it's not independent. It's being a fucking human being. Right. So just be good. I need you to add a couple more fucks into this conversation, by the way, because I think I've gotten far more curse jars than you have. So
it's funny, like, even you get to that. I don't swear a lot on stream. It's kind of been trained out of me because of the other ventures I do with the Gmh podcast. We are family friendly, so I have to filter what I say, and I do like to say fuck a lot, but for whatever reason, once those lights go on, it just I'll say fudge instead of fuck. I'll say butthole instead of asshole.
But going back to what Tim was saying earlier, that's the persona that you're publicly putting forward for that effort.
And yeah, it's in the case of like my own personal brand, my own personal stream, whatever. If it comes back and haunts me and someone clips it, I had a troll come into my chat when I was gaming with the wife and Mike.
Congratulations on your first troll, by the way.
Right. And post in chat, and I was just I'm passively watching chat, and he goes, oh, can you say happy birthday to me? My name is what was it?
He was trying to get you to say nigger.
Right.
Really, that's what it comes down to. Is he was trying to take advantage of that which I've fallen for in the past. And he was trying to get you to say something that could be clipped and used against you.
And he did. He immediately clipped it. I said it. I was like, Nick Kerr was the name. That's my name is Nick Kerr. Can you say happy birthday to me? I'm like, sure. Why? Happy birthday, Nick Kerr. Right. And next thing I see a notification on Twitch pop up. Clip. I'm like, really?
Yep.
Immediately removed the clip. Called him out. Next thing I know, the person is now
waving bye to the missuses as they're leaving us, to the children that wake up eventually.
Immediately see the clip and then remove the clip, ban the person. You ban the person from chat because it's basically, they weren't getting the right reaction from me, and escalated to the point where I believe they said, "Can I put my dick in your mouth?"
Yeah,
was the last.
No, that was
or
a little more racy than that,
right? Immediately got them banned, and then proceeded to then spam invite me to multiple voice chats while I'm on stream, which are popping up on my feed because I didn't have a reason to turn that off
until now.
And then went through and I hope that $10 was worth it to change their username on Xbox to Nate Fu is gay.
Yep.
And then proceed to spam me for another 20 minutes, and then spam all the other people in my fire team.
Which is funny because, honestly,
I've been called worse things than gay, right?
Yeah. Hey.
So what if I was?
I'm very proud of you if you
right?
are. And if you're not, I'm still very proud of you.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of streams, let's hard segue in very ungracefully into we just did last weekend we just did the Gmh Charity stream with our collaboration with two Right Love on Our Arms, Twaloha, or as Joe likes to say, Twalaha. It's kind of amusing. And we managed to raise $5,761 towards the mental health kits, and that was
nice.
So it's 570.
And these were in particular suicide prevention
mental health kits. Correct.
So what differentiates them from normal mental health kits?
Normal mental health kits are very general in nature. They're kind of an all around. Here's some resources. Here's some coping skills that you can we cycle in or rotate in. Different resources, breathing techniques, calming techniques. We include a journal, and then we have a contact card that has crisis lines and whatnot. With Twaloha, we kind of dove into specifically suicide awareness, right, and focus the resources on that. So that would be the difference between them. Instead of being very all-encompassing, very vague on it. Really dive into the suicide prevention aspect of it. Because again, this is something that there's a stigma around feeling so down that you want to end your own life, or that you feel worthless, that you don't deserve to be in this world anymore.
Well, there's a stigma around mental health in general, and then there's a stigma around that aspect of it even more so than anything else.
Yeah, and of course, we focus on the suicide because that is the worst case scenario, right? It's one thing to suffer from a mental health issue. It's one thing to suffer from, silly things, and I'll say that with finger quotes. I have a speech impediment that I've been ridiculed for my entire life for. And
I'll still ridicule you for it, as you ridicule me,
right? And that's fine. But at one point in time, that was a very hard thing for me to deal with because there was a social acceptance issue, right? I felt like I was ostracized from my peers because I have a stammer or a stutter. I felt ostracized from my peers because I was slight of build.
Mhm.
And these are things that I don't have control over.
Yeah. And now I'll ostracize you because you're in far better health than like anyone else in this family. So
as I smoke
Fuck
a cigar and ride a skateboard and
yeah, and then we'll stand up and run a 5-kilometer marathon
off the couch, run a
off the
5K in
couch.
under 30
I'm
minutes.
like, hold on, I got to stretch.
But those are things I had no physical control over.
Mhm.
And then to pair that back into someone with with a mental health issue, with depression, with anxiety, again, you don't have a choice. We don't have a choice on how we identify ourselves.
Mhm.
It's hard, and it gets to a point where if you're not getting acceptance from anywhere, what's the point in being here? And that's what leads people to suicidal ideation.
Well, and with GMH in particular, like I did the mental health training through a company called Psych Armor, which is in particular focused on helping vets,
right?
And how to interact with vets effectively. And in so many cases, it's when someone is considering suicide, it's what are the benefits of them still being here, compared to what are the benefits of them not.
Right.
And in many cases, it comes down to that conversation of how do you outweigh it for people. And again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's respect for other human beings and valuing other human beings, which is so important. And so much of what has been our entire lives, everything that's been leading up to this point, everything that's been up to, the point where an individual has as much impact as anything else, has been, you're just a number.
Right.
342.
You're just a product. Yeah.
Veteran, number 342 going into the VA, hoping to get the support they need, and not necessarily saying this is John or Rob.
His name was
someone,
Robert Paulson.
Yeah.
Right?
and so much there becomes the conversation of taking back each individual's humanity. And I think that's where we struggle the most right now as a society, is our industrial age has been about how can we as a society benefit more. And we've now reached an age where it's about how can we as an individual achieve more.
Right.
So this has been my TED Talk, and
and then it comes down. What do you do about it when you're in that situation? And let's circle this all the way back around. What do you do about it if you are, one of the employee of Activision Blizzard, right? Do you rely on the community around you to boycott the product and potentially, limit sales to something that you're working on, that you're passionate about, that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into, blood, sweat, and pixels into? Or do you do what, Activision and Blizzard employees, they stood up and walked out, right? They said, we've had enough. And they don't have a union. They don't have protection. That was a huge, risky move.
Yeah, and since the 70s, I want to say at this point, unions have been so degraded that a lot of that support, a lot of that what the union value is so distorted that people don't have that action.
Right.
There was the Amazon fought so hard to prevent unionization, and the last
Amazon,
presidency
Target,
and administration
Walmart,
fought so hard to prevent unionization that the value of it was lost. And mind you, as someone who's been a manager before, there are things about unions that I hate with passion.
I'm in a union, and there's things about that union that I have moral strife with.
At the end of the day, it is a means to help better the entire conversation. I'm not anti-union. I'm anti-corruption in unions. I'm not anti-company.
I'm anti-corruption in general. Right.
Yeah. And that's where we have so many problems. And I think we're now transitioning from a phase of few people having the reins to control the message to everyone having a platform where suddenly we're in a conversation.
Right.
Like a random person calling for a boycott of a company could have just as much impact as silencing an entire
demographic
has done in the past. And we're seeing those effects in real time. So, Tim says, so an interesting take on the Activision Blizzard thing that me and Nate didn't talk about elsewhere. A friend of mine hopes this is drastic enough for Blizzard to split from Activision. I don't think so, money and legal reasons, but it was an interesting notion predicated on returning Blizzard to its former glory.
Right.
My response is, that's why, what's his name? Menson, the original CEO of Blizzard, left Activision Blizzard. Blizzard is no longer the entity that it was because it formed with Activision.
Right.
And too much of its recent direction and sales have been dictated by beating a bottom line.
Right. It's the same reason that Bungie split from Blizzard.
Yeah. Well, Bungie and Blizzard split differently. Bungie got investment from a huge company that allowed them to go independent and move from there. And again, this is me going off on a tangent, but video games, music, television and film, all those things, the reason why the studios had so much control is because they had the technology and the leverage to actually allow those things to happen.
Well, and they were the focal point for distribution. And for the longest time, and this goes back into the original ABC, NBC, CBS days, where if you wanted to put something on the TV, you had to go through them. If you wanted to put an album out, you had to go through a record label. There wasn't a means for independent submission.
And now, I mean, you saw music change drastically when Pro Tools became something you could do in your own garage. And suddenly, iTunes Store popped up as a way of giving those people access and distribution they never had before. Right. So now these studios, the only thing they have to offer that people can't have on their own is marketing.
Right. Marketing and initial investment.
Yeah.
Right. If it's something like, I don't have the ways and means to produce this on a professional level. Okay, we'll invest in we'll give you the resources.
But in a scale like when the Beatles were first coming out, you're looking at what would nowadays be considered a $2 or $3 million investment for them to be able to produce an album, much less the marketing associated with it.
And let's take this back to $5,000 to $10,000. Let's take this back to the Blizzard Activision Bungie thing. Activision, their marketing channels, and the Blizzard launcher gave them an avenue to distribute on the PC. Gave them the resources to bring in 2 other studios.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Activision is a distributor. They've always been a distributor, and that's been their biggest toll. Like, let's change the subject entirely, just looking at business models. Let's look at Valve. Valve has not produced a game of their own that is worthwhile in decades.
Right.
What they've done has created the store and the marketplace and the basically what is called the
it's a distribution channel.
Well, the channel, has created the channel through Steam that allows them to maintain the kind of authority and impact. And that has been a model of change. And even going back, like Deloitte, which is a huge financial and economics consulting firm, and there's many others out there, but Deloitte is one of the top 3. Published a book back in 2014 that basically said it's no longer about controlling the means; it's controlling the way in which people can access it. And that is what iTunes Store is.
Right.
That is what Steam is. That is, to a certain degree, what Google can implement if they wanted to. And that is where those business models are taking them. Now, does that give more access and capability? Perhaps. It depends on where those are going. But we're already seeing people taking advantage of it. Harris Heller, for example, has created StreamBeats, which is a DMCA-controlled stream that allows people to put content out there. And Streambeats generates more money for him because he's getting the ad revenue than typical DMCA would for modern artists.
Right.
Because it's about quantity, not about the individual aspect. And he's figured out that's where the model's going, and so he's adapted.
Right.
So much of what controls today is literally legal agreements that came forward before YouTube, before Twitch, before any of these other things existed.
How dare someone stream a song free of charge on their channel when we could be monetizing on it? And that's what the record labels look at with these DMCA strikes. It's not the artist per se that's striking. It's typically the label that owns the artist because they've fronted up some sort of, some monetary sum to make that music happen. Right, so they're the ones going after these small streamers because, guess what? You're distributing us without a license, without our explicit permission or paying us.
Well, for so long within the entertainment industry, there is so much that doesn't have a legal precedence because you end up with competing with a Universal, which is now Comcast and NBC, or a Disney, and all those sort of things, and they just buy you out and overspend you before anything can get to a actual legal review. And because of that, there is so much unknown. And that is part of the reason that they protect their empires the way they do is, you're saying something you shouldn't? They instantly outspend you and squash you because they have more control.
Right.
The problem is now is that 40 people compared to 2 people can now fight them.
Right.
And so you start ending up with different conversations of what that means. Now, this can go into a whole conversation about the conservative pro-business Supreme Court or bullshit. Yes, all that is true, but when it comes to businesses here, this has been what's happening for 40 years, for 60 years, for 100 years. And that's not going to change until someone is able to hold their own against it.
Right.
And that someone is getting closer and closer. We just saw, in the news that Scarlett Johansson sued Disney based on the Black Widow release.
Well, right, because when she originally signed the contract, that contract was
theatrical release.
Right, because we didn't have a pandemic.
Right. And now we're suddenly looking at a model that has a lot of people interested and has had a lot of people interested. This is the first time it's actually been viable as a result of taking everything to a streaming service. Well, most talent and talent contracts, which have been around for decades at this point, aren't situated for a streaming environment.
Right.
So how do you quantify the value of that? Well, there's a reason Netflix doesn't release how many people view each of their seasons and episodes and what goes into it. And that's, partly because they don't want the competition from other services, but it's partly because they get to control the conversation with the talent that's creating it.
Yes.
So, Tim recently said, why are people not speaking up about this earlier? And the conversation is...
They're afraid.
Cultural change.
Yeah.
Before it was acceptable. Now it's no longer acceptable in culture, and you can actually get support for it.
If you look at most companies, for lack of a better term, terms of services, code of conducts, they all put in their anti-retaliation clauses. The problem is enforcing those.
Yeah.
And I've seen it even in my company. It's like, sure, I'm not retaliating against you per se directly, but I've built up a deck of offenses that I can now use against you. My former manager was famous for this. Like, I had a hard time getting to work on time. Right. I was living 40 something miles away, and we were starting at 5 a.m. So I was literally waking up at 2:30, 2:45 in the morning so that I could shower, shave, get ready for work, and then drive 40 miles into work to get there on time. And that was difficult for me. And it didn't seem to be a problem for a long time. It was like, oh yeah, okay. I was there at 5:01. I was there at 5:02. I was there at 5:05, 5:07. Great. No, nobody said anything until I decided to, I need you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to work, a 12-hour day today. I can't. I've got a doctor's appointment I need to, get my kids to. I have, my own personal therapy session on Tuesdays. I can't stay late today. Oh, well, if you're going to leave early, all those times you were late,
Mm-hmm.
we can suddenly make this an issue. And while that is direct retaliation for me pushing back on something I have a right to do so, there is no law that says I have to work over 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, he's going, well, you can do that, but I will make your life absolutely miserable through legal channels.
And there are people that do that. There are
Right.
literally people that their entire process is, how can I take advantage of
Mhm.
you? Not how can we create a better product or a better environment or
Right.
be better in general.
And again, if you're a programmer, you're a producer, you're whatever, you work somewhere. Tim can't even say it. Tim's self-employed. Tim has made mistakes before,
Huh?
right? Mistakes get made. To have those held over your head as a bargaining chip.
Well, it's an axe. It's always an axe
Right.
hanging over you. Like, I have to say that from the work that I've had that's ever been long term, the best situation has ever been when I was finally laid off.
Right.
Because then there's no longer an axe hanging over your head.
Mhm.
And you suddenly get that freedom. Like, yeah, it sucks. You've got to figure out what you're going to do from then. But it's, okay, you're back in control of it.
Right.
And,
But yeah,
that goes back to our earlier conversation of, the rights and respect of other human beings. There are legitimately people that the only way they know how to manage is by taking advantage of other people.
Yep.
And
by
that's the only way
lording
they know how
over
to
them.
profit.
Yeah.
And whatever. And that's the pimp mentality.
Yep.
Again, goes back centuries, millennia.
So yeah, a lot of the people involved in this Activision Blizzard thing,
Mhm.
sure, there's an anti-retaliation clause on there, but that one time that they came back from work late on a Wednesday 3 months
Mhm.
ago, it's on file somewhere and can be used against you,
Uh-huh.
rightfully
Right,
so. And so, is it retaliation? No, because you did the offense. But the fact that it's being used in the circumstance now, after you've spoken up against some sort of atrocity, that's very much retaliation. How do you prove that in court? How do you prove that someone held this card in their sleeve until now to use against you?
And that's always been the conversation.
Mhm.
And it's not even just with, right now at work, I keep telling people, keep a paper trail.
Yep.
Yes, we are a partner. Yes, we are part of the process. But we literally had a contract
Mhm.
where the person, or our point of contact, who's not a part of our weekly meetings,
Right.
come in and tell us, so I've been told that you guys aren't delivering this, and this. To which I was able to pull receipts and say, actually,
Bingo.
this is what's been happening. This is the response. Here's everything that there is. You tell us what to go. We're ready to go with it, but you guys have held us up.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a different conversation. And
Well, even
look, I'm not holding this against you.
Mhm.
Like, this is the life, and I know, someone felt scared for their job or felt some need to do it, but this is what's going on. And, I know people that I have helped in the industry, in entertainment, who have finally filed and, stepped up for the Me Too movement and things like that.
Right.
Where I'm like, you need to put together, save your emails.
Yep.
Save a bullet list. Put together what happened, where, when, and have that cataloged. Because if someone tries to go after you, even if you have no interest in using it because you knew what you were doing, have that at your defense.
Mhm.
Because if it comes back to you, you can't let them control a narrative.
Right. Well,
It comes down to people, again, not respecting other individuals.
in
in a
a
relationship.
non-nefarious point of conversation with the stuff I was doing with this project I was working on,
Mhm.
long-term hours, whatnot. Yeah, there was a lot of conversation that went on
Through text message.
Yeah, the
He
engineers
just showed
and
his
me
phone for those that didn't
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
through text message, through off-channel means, and there were many a time where I would go, I'll respond to that in an email, and I'd get a response back of, but text is fine. I'm like, no, there needs to be, I need
Paper
to have a paper trail on this, especially if you're doing a functional change to the directive that you're giving me. Because if for whatever reason I do this thing and our customer comes back and says, well, why was this done? Well, I have a text message from someone, whereas that tells me otherwise. That's not going to fly. So if I CC and BCC people in the process, there is a paper trail there that if something goes sideways, my manager, his manager, the other manager, the project director, everyone can look back and go, oh no, Nate sent this email on Tuesday at 9 p.m. that said this was the directive change. You were copied on it. I was copied on it. Our client was copied on it. So it's you got to have the receipts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I expose myself to risk of not necessarily retaliation, but if something goes sideways, they go, well, why did you do this off channel?
Yeah. And so much of this comes down to people at the end of the day trying to protect themselves and their individual interests.
Yeah.
And there's, again, this isn't. At times, there are people, and like I will talk about megalomaniacs in another time and period, that entire entity is about showing that they have a control and authority over other people. But there are legitimately people, like, majority of the time, it's just like, well, shit, this situation arose. How do I make it not my fault?
Right.
Because
how do I deflect?
There is so much right now. Like, no matter how many times we said, like, it's a learning experience. We're all going to grow better. There's still people, and there's still mentalities in businesses and whatever that, you make one mistake, you're screwed for the rest of your life. And I know people that's happened to. And so a lot of what I do, as a manager, as, a human being, is say, let's talk through everything and figure out where it is. I have no interest in screwing you guys over, but let's figure out what we can do to make sure that all parties come out of this ahead. It's the reason I've got companies off of blacklists before in the past, because I'll have the conversation as a human being, not as oh my God, I got to protect my butt.
Right. But there is an onus for you to put all of that stuff on record as well.
Right. Well, you can't have that unless you're willing to show up to the table prepared. And in many cases, that happens in life. The amount of times that your kids have called you on stuff that you've said 4 weeks ago. Like, just looking right here in this pool behind us, your daughter throwing a hissy fit because you had told her she could jump backwards into the pool as long as she wasn't jumping over the steps. And then her mother telling her, don't jump into the shallow end in the first place. Yeah. But Daddy said this. It's like, well, shit.
Right.
But that all comes down to respecting the other individual. You guys made an agreement of what the boundaries were, and this is what you've established. And now how do we keep those things moving forward? It comes down to respect for human beings is work. It comes down to life. It comes down to parenting. It comes down to relationships. It's all about that.
Yeah.
And people aren't mature enough to get to that step.
And you communicate these things. Yeah. Again, you generate the receipts. If I say my daughter can jump backwards.
Receipts aren't about getting the win. Receipts are about, well, we discussed this.
Right.
If that's no longer the case, let's
if
have
I
that
tell my daughter
conversation.
she can jump backwards in the pool, again, it's on me to make sure that I communicate that with you, Grammy, wife, your wife. I said this was okay. So that if she does do that thing and you turn around and reprimand her, there's a reason that she's fighting back against you.
Yeah.
Right?
All right.
This is one of our longest episodes.
This is one of our longest
episodes. It will pare down
episodes.
Probably to about an hour 15. But
So what else do we want to cover? Because you just ended on a very good point with that conversation. It's communication and respect.
Right.
So anything going on in the gaming world or the technology world that we want to talk about?
Listener question screwed you. Sorry. No, we actually appreciate you being here and
it gives us
giving
content.
us listener questions. It's
I talk to Nate all the time.
The reason we actually stream this, exactly. The reason we stream this is for you to come in. Burning Wing, our buddy, he posts up in the Discord every now and then with feedback, whatnot. He'll DM me on the side like, "What do you think about this?" And that generates content for us. It gives us a talking point, and it gives us a talking point that he and I have not been sitting around ruminating on for the last 2 weeks, right? So yeah. Thank you for, stopping in and,
yeah. Oh, we'll definitely mine it. So, we're just jumping in real quick to some video game and technology news. California, amongst a number of other states, has banned the gaming PC.
What the fuck?
And basically, this is the response.
Hold on, here I'm going to get my fuck quote. Fuck you. What the fuck is going on here? This is the fucking worst fucking bullshit I've ever fucking seen. Oh, I'm going to ban gaming PCs because they consume too much fucking power. Fuck you.
Yeah, this also goes for Washington, Colorado, and I forgot the other two states.
Right.
Long story short, basically, this comes down to 2016.
Mm-hmm.
A rule that was put in place regarding energy efficiency.
Right. Go to Dell right now and try to order a system. Go to Alienware and try to order a system, and you will see a nice little message that says, these products will not ship to these 6 states or 7 states.
Yeah. And so what basically has happened is that in an effort to try and control and be more green with things, they have isolated not just gaming PCs, but huge portions of data mining and things like that. And a lot of this was to try and control, at the end of the day, cryptocurrency.
Sure.
But what ends up happening is that individual gamers and
they
renderers
hit this with such
and
a
data
broad
miners,
brush.
Yeah, this was a situation of, in my personal opinion, people legislating on something that they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Well, I appreciate the green efforts.
This is California. You know how many render farms there are
here? This is California. This is Colorado.
No, but I mean,
this is
I'm
Oregon.
saying
this is Washington.
Just for us in general. Like, the entertainment industry, the amount of computer horsepower that is required to render your favorite Marvel film.
Yeah. Well, you suddenly realize, Google Cloud has their render farm in the ocean. It helps keep it cool because it's underwater. But it's also in international water.
Right. What such a dummy move.
Yeah, but again, they had the best interests, and I will give them that, but it was a complete lack of understanding of what they were trying to deal with.
Right.
And so...
And you're going after such a niche market, right? Like,
well, it wasn't specifically against gaming.
Right.
It's just that's how...
That's where it
articles
manifested.
And things like that are putting it out to be as it's a direct attack against gaming PCs. But these are some of the repercussions of those decisions. And it goes much farther and larger than that.
Right.
I was talking with my boss last week when an article came out about it, and it was officially, came into effect. Is like, well, this makes our ability to respond to things obsolete because we will have to use a cloud environment that's located somewhere else in order to do it. We can't use personal systems. Now, mind you, stuff that's already, bought, and we have. Thankfully, we bought our PCs recently.
Right.
Then it's not going to affect us. But
you bought.
Yeah.
I know, you're paying for it.
I'm paying for it in its own way.
It's in installments.
I mean, and this comes down to a lot of...
Yeah, entirely tone deaf. Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's one thing there. So props to those to realize that. And it's something I'm going to continue to follow just because of its impact in general, but has nothing to do with us being parents or things like that. It's just something that's of interest to me. What else we got?
I think we are good.
All right. Well then. At the over hour and 45-minute mark from episode 28 of the
I hate when
podcast.
you put timestamps in here because I edit it down and it's like, at the hour and 45 minute, and when I get through with the edits after I take out all the interruptions and whatnot, it's like
30 minutes.
Yeah, it's 35 minutes, and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So quit timestamping me for fuck's sake.
Well.
But yeah, I think our official time at this point is an hour and 35 minutes, and that'll get pared down. But from episode 28...
From episode 28 of the Whiskey Podcast, I'm Chew Data.
I am Nate Fu.
You can find us at N8FOO or Chew Data 2020 on all socials, and then Debuffed Dad at any social /website.
Right. DebuffDad.com, DebuffDad,
And
Twitch
we are in
if
the
you're already
process
here.
of a lot more content,
Yeah.
which will be coming to you soon, to not to theaters, but direct to you on your couch.
So is that www.debuffdad or www.debuffdad.com?
Well, as you're trying to trigger Tim in chat, I would say it's www. I'm True Data. I'm True Data.
I'm Nate Fu.
And this is episode 28 of the Whiskey Podcast.